Any curry that you love to cook at all?
I should a chicken curry. All the things that I know my in-laws would be immensely disappointed if they follow this video channel. They'll be disappointed. So whenever we're cooking and they FaceTime, we're hiding behind. I packaged a can of baked beans, a bottle of curry mustard.
Okay.
I wrapped it in some sponge, and I left it at reception at the office in Johnsonville. I remember when 𝗧𝗏 came from India to visit, my friend and I, we went to see him at my kaka's house, and he blessed us. And I remember him saying to my friend and I, "Oh, this blessing means that you won't eat meat or drink."
Okay.
and I remember sitting there with my friend, and we went, "Oh, hang on, we didn't agree to that." And
Indian Weekender presents Lunch with Business Leaders.
Hi, good day. I'm Sandeep, and you are watching the Indian Weekender. Today, you are watching me in a altogether different settings. This is our brand new series that we are coming up with the name of Lunch with the Business Leaders. So as we said that in this series, we strive to speak to some of the prominent business leaders here in New Zealand and try to steal some time out of their extremely busy diaries in a very informal setting here in restaurant, try to share a bite and share a lot of stories of their rise, of their growth, of their challenges that they face, and most importantly, of the vision that they have got in leading their respective business organization. So in today's show, we are going to speak to a prominent business leader of Kiwi Indian heritage. This gentleman recently rose to fame, I would say, or he garnered a lot of attention and eyeballs when he accompanied Prime Minister Jacinda Arderns in her first post-COVID trade visit to Japan. So the gentleman I'm talking about, he is CEO of a very prominent automotive maker, Toyota, and he talked a lot about the vision of getting hydrogen cars in New Zealand. If you haven't yet guessed till now, then probably no prizes in guessing his name. I'm talking about Neeraj Lala. Neeraj Lala is CEO of Toyota NZ, and he has very kindly agreed to share his very valuable time with us. So very good afternoon to you, Neeraj. How are you this afternoon?
very good. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's extremely your pleasure. So first of all, we heard a lot about you in the last couple of months, I would say, ever since the news came out that you are going to accompany Prime Minister Arderns to Japan and Singapore, and you talked a lot about Toyota's vision in bringing the hydrogen fuel cars here in New Zealand and overseas. So walk us through all about that, being part of that Prime Minister's delegation.
Yeah, it was humbling to be invited as a part of her business delegation to Japan. She has a very unique business trade group that joins her on many of her trade missions. Most of them are New Zealand companies, prominent New Zealand branded companies. So for Toyota, that's a non-New Zealand company, to join her trade mission to Japan was a privilege and an honour to be invited. It was all around hydrogen technology. So we had just announced a car share initiative in New Zealand, and she had requested through her team if we could announce that car share program in Japan as part of her trip.
Surely.
So we agreed to that to support her and the whole hydrogen opportunity for New Zealand.
That's great. And that's the reason actually that we have been wanting to talk to you and bring you to this brand new show and share a bite and I think share a drink as well. Have a cup of tea, Indian masala tea. And we strive to talk to you a lot today, more about your journey as CEO of this key business organization, but also more about you, your passion, so if I'm not wrong, you are Indian origin CEO who was born and brought up here in Wellington, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So my mum and dad moved from India when they were very young. They married very young, like many Indian parents, moved out of out of India to provide their family or their children with a better opportunity, and they felt New Zealand could do that for their children. So they had a very young family. So we were all born. Mum and dad were quite young, and so they based themselves in Wellington. My 3 elder sisters, and myself, all born in Wellington.
Right.
So we consider ourselves Kiwis.
Surely you are.
But of course, being brought up in Wellington in this Indian community, it was hard not to also be the Indian, boy, or in my sister's case, girls, trying to be Kiwi, but actually still,
being a Kiwi Indian, isn't
Kiwi
it?
Indian, yeah, Kiwi Indian, welded to the heritage,
of course,
and the culture and the values, which in Wellington is really strong.
It is indeed very strong. We have got a very strong knit Kiwi Indian community over there, and they preserve a lot of culture over there, isn't it?
Also Auckland,
surely.
So pockets throughout New Zealand very strong, but Wellington Indian Association is.
And just to give you an idea on that, how close our Kiwi Indian community is, that every time your name comes up doing something great in the media, I receive many phone calls saying, look, did you get an opportunity to speak to Neeraj at all? Yet I said, look, we are striving to speak to him at some opportune time, and today is that opportune time.
Yeah, look, it's humbling because you do the best job you can, and the Indian community is so tight that when someone does it, when someone's doing something that's that the community feels as though there's a huge sense of pride.
Of course,
in
it is.
The community. So
of course it is, and probably there is a shared sense that you are a part of us, and that's the best part of being of Kiwi Indian heritage. And on that note, let's try to begin our conversation from the role that has brought a lot of attention on you, being the CEO of 𝗧cie𝗊𝗏. And probably it was in November 2020 when you were, I would say, baptized to this role. Probably you can throw us more light on that time.
Yeah, look, I've only ever worked for 𝗧cie𝗊𝗏.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And when you say that, how long it is?
Yeah. So in January next year, it will be my 25 years.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so
he doesn't look that old to have a two and a half decades of working history.
Yeah. So I after university, I had a very brief job at the radio network, but my passion was to work for Toyota when I was at uni and in Wellington, and I didn't have a resume. I just wanted to work for Toyota.
Right.
And initially, I thought Toyota's head office was in Wellington. So I thought that's handy because I didn't want to leave Wellington, maybe didn't want to leave my mum and dad. And then Toyota decided to move head office to Palmerston North, where we had a big parts operation. That's at the same time when the borders opened in New Zealand and we could bring cars in without duty. So our manufacturing closed down. So there was That was in, so manufacturing closed down a couple of years before I started with Toyota. So by 1998, all of our cars that were sold in New Zealand were built overseas. Right. And our manufacturing plants had already closed down. And so there was no need to be, head office in Wellington was important for manufacturing because you were close to government. But then it made sense to move to Palmerston North. So the company made that decision for 3 reasons. One was we wanted to be close to a university, so we wanted to have access to talent. Right. We wanted to move to a city that allowed staff and people to move forward in their careers from a cost of living perspective. And then finally, Palmerston North is the distribution city of New Zealand.
Okay.
So it's the only city with a 24-hour airport. And we can distribute parts anywhere in the country, guaranteed overnight.
Right.
So that is where we felt we could best serve our customers. So I moved to Palmerston North. I moved there. My job was interesting because I didn't have a resume.
But before, exactly. Before talking more about that, I've heard some stories about you not having a resume and still cracking a job at 𝗧cie𝗊𝗏𝗏. Can you walk us through about that?
So I applied many times, and I didn't get a reply back. And so one day, I packaged a can of baked beans, a bottle of curry mustard.
Okay.
I wrapped it in some sponge, and I left it at reception at the office in Johnsonville.
All right.
And,
Okay.
And the marketing boss the next day rang me.
Take your shit over here.
And he said you can come in for a meeting.
Really?
Yeah. And so I took my resume. I took my piece of paper that had the summary of what I'd done, and I turned it into a car brochure.
Okay.
So Camry was launched in '97, and the slogan for Camry was "Camry, an exceptional drive." And I changed it to Neeraj, an exceptional investment. So I was available in chocolate brown exterior with red interior trim.
Wow.
And then I was powered by my studies at uni.
Right.
And so I got my interview. And
that's very interesting, and that's amazing as well, I guess, and that's very inspirational. I'm not sure if our youngsters who are watching, probably they would want to follow that practice. I'm not sure, not guaranteed if it will fetch them an interview all the time.
Well, I had a text message this week from a friend of mine who I recently met, and he used my can of baked beans in his interview and got the job.
Wow.
He sent me a note saying it worked. And
that still works.
It worked for him. So the can of baked beans and the mustard was all about telling your boss that you were keen as mustard. So you were full of beans and keen as mustard.
But you have saved me the next question I was going to ask, that are our new followers, your new followers, are allowed to change that menu, or can they change it by anything, or they have to stick to that basic recipe?
No, they can change it if they think that. I mean, there's always a better idea.
Sure.
And I hope that for me, even for our staff at Toyota, it's a demonstration of thinking outside the square, because the sponge was also to absorb and learn. So it's a metaphor for a desire to want to develop and get better.
And then you have to be lucky that your hiring manager do understand that.
That is true. That is true. The boss of marketing at the time, his name was Gary McIver. He loved it.
Okay.
And some people may not like it, but
fair.
That's okay.
That's all life is about, isn't it?
Right.
You need to take your chances, and you never know where you land.
Yeah,
you have landed at a very sweet spot, I would say. But of course, with a lot of hard work, dedication, because 25 years being in one job and then rising to be a CEO is not easy, isn't it?
So I haven't been in the same job for 25 years.
Okay.
I think that's the key thing. So I've been with the same company, but my role has changed every 3 or 4 years. I've tried to force a change.
Yep. Okay. I was going to ask you that, was it a strategic choice or?
Toyota New Zealand has incredible culture, and you make your own opportunity. And that's the magic of the company, is you can do things.
Right.
And so I always did what my boss told me. So if he said, hey, I think he or she said there's an opportunity in this area and you should take it, I've been quite excited about taking it. When my predecessor talked to me about going to the US with my family, again, it was a good opportunity to, rather than being afraid of the opportunity, it was about embracing the opportunity. So,
Sure. Well, no, I completely agree. And while we keep on talking about your journey with Toyota and your rise to this epitome, let's talk more about your Indian heritage, your Indian family, Indian connection, and tell us a little bit more about how was it while you were growing up as an Indian kid. You have told me that you felt like a Kiwi kid, but you can't escape being an Indian when you are an Indian heritage, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. My mum and dad were community contributors.
Okay.
It's like you see in the Indian movies. It's a very tight, loyal, high standard Indian community.
I hope you're not complaining about that.
No, well, it's I think when you're in it, it's quite stressful. But I think when you reflect on it, it kind of shapes who you are. That's how I've sort of reflected on that. But when you're in it, it's actually quite difficult.
Yes.
because
to sail through your everyday, dealing with your mum and dad, their demands, their whims, isn't it?
I remember telling my mother that on one of my first trips to Japan that I ate beef.
Okay.
You know, part of the Japanese culture, and she was disappointed. I could see the disappointment. It's just one example of standards. You know, so growing up, it was you had to do this, you had to come to the Indian hall. You know, there was this function you had to go to. I remember when 𝗧𝗏 came from India to visit. My friend and I, we went to see him at my kaka's house, and he blessed us. And I remember him saying to my friend and I, "Oh, this blessing means that you won't eat meat or drink."
Okay.
and I remember sitting there with my friend, and we went, "Oh, hang on, we didn't agree to that." and I remember him saying, "Okay, you'll try." You'll try.
Okay.
And we said, okay, well, we can do that. We can try.
Try and getting the blessings?
Well, we took the blessings and we committed to trying. And but it was that pressure, you know. But it was also the pressure at that moment in the room when everyone's watching you.
Sure.
You know, when 𝗏𝗏 was alive, you know, so you're like, oh, what's everyone going to think of me? You know, and
so
the pressure.
I'm just trying to understand when you're talking about that social pressure, that family pressure that we all in Indian community, we are quite accustomed to. Was there any pressure about finding your right partner, marriage? What was all of that about?
Yeah, sure. You know, there was so there wasn't pressure about finding a partner. There was about pressure about finding the right partner. You know, and
she has to be of the same, I would say, ethnicity, Indian.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring other backgrounds, but was that also a question?
So it wasn't a question from me. It was an expectation. It was an expectation from my parents, the community, and everybody was watching. So as you just told me today, people ring when they see me in the newspaper or on the TV. So it was sort of no different. It wasn't any different growing up. You know, if you did something wrong, the whole community knew. And so there was this expectation that you would marry an Indian girl, you would, you know, that would be the right caste.
So did you succeed in that?
Yeah, I did. I was very lucky. I was very lucky. I was lucky that I met my wife on a ski trip. And her parents weren't very happy initially.
Weren't?
No, they weren't.
So we have got a background for a Bollywood movie here as well.
That's right. Yeah, no, they weren't happy initially, but they are now, thank goodness. But that took a little while. But it was hard. It was hard finding the right, you know, because in Wellington, it's not just, you know, finding an Indian girlfriend. This is like, I don't know if this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, let alone the right caste. So, you know, the options are limited. But of course, you have to understand that system as well. And I said, I guess when you're growing up, it's hard to understand that. I understand it now, but I'm going through the same thing now with my kids.
Yes. If you don't mind me asking, how many kids you have got?
So I've got 3 kids.
Okay.
2 daughters and a son.
Okay.
So my eldest daughter is at university.
Right. Okay.
My middle daughter Sonia, she is currently in 𝗓𝗍cie 1, and my son is 11 years old, so he's still.
Perfect.
He's still,
so I must compliment you. He doesn't look that old to have teenager kids.
Yeah. No, I feel like I have aged in the last few years, but you know, no. My oldest daughter Alicia, she's transitioned to university and she's doing really well. So
that's great. So walk us through more about your family environment. You know, what language do you speak at home?
So with my mum and dad, I will speak with mum. I'll speak Gujarati maybe 80-90% of the time. My dad's been here for a long time now, and so if you spoke to him on the phone, you'd think you were speaking to a Kiwi guy. You know, he doesn't have an accent. In his work, because he was a successful businessman. His nickname was Mike. You know, his name is Neeraj Lala, but his nickname at work was Mike. So he was known as Mike Lala for for years. So yeah, and in our house, it's mainly English. You know, which is something we need
हिंदी
to work
बोलते हैं
on.
आप घर पे?
I understand Hindi. I could watch an Indian movie quite easily and enjoy it.
Right.
I have watched an Indian movie on the plane when I have travelled overseas. You know, when you've got 4 hours and you think, oh, okay,
Enough time to watch a movie.
I'll better watch an Indian movie.
So what is your favorite movie? The latest.
I don't have a favourite movie.
Yeah.
I don't have a favourite Indian movie. I don't think. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So when was the last time when you watched a Bollywood movie?
My daughters love. What's that Shah Rukh Khan movie? Him and Kajol. You know, he's probably been in lots of movies with her. But that's the one.
Right. Yep.
That's the one.
Okay.
I think we've watched that about 10 times at home. My girls love it.
Yes.
And also Om Shanti. They love that.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, look, it's
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to be able to enjoy that.
Okay, and let's talk more about food. What food do you eat at home? What type of food do you eat?
We would do traditional Gujarati food maybe 2-3 times a week. Right,
okay. So when you say Gujarati, what is this, thepla or dhokla or?
No. So traditional Gujarati food. So we'd have shak and roti and and rice and But there's as you know, there's lots of different variations of that.
So when you live with your mom and dad, obviously your mom would have cooked the food. I'm assuming that. So what's the situation now with you and your wife and your kids? Who is cooking at the home?
So my wife does most of the heavy lifting. She's an exceptional mum, exceptional wife, and she has become an exceptional cook.
Okay. I'm
And
assuming it's a compliment, isn't it?
It is
about cooking.
It is a compliment. It is a compliment. And if she watches the interview, she'll understand the humour in that comment.
Okay.
But I enjoy cooking too. I will cook a lot of our non-veg. Food. So my wife is vegetarian, or she prefers to call herself a flexitarian, depending on what's on offer. But she's vegetarian. So if I cook for the kids or myself, I will cook something. And I enjoy cooking.
Great, good to know that.
Yeah.
So what do you enjoy most? Cooking Indian or cooking Kiwi food?
A fusion.
A fusion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my sister, both of my I will say all of my sisters are exceptional cooks. So I'm the youngest of our three. Thank you. Of my 3 older sisters.
Right.
But Sheila, closest to me in age, is she could start her own restaurant quite easily.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's a foodie. Yeah.
Okay. So talking about your culinary skills, what do you love to cook at home? Like, give us some names. So
my what would be my signature dish? I think my kids would say that they love my bolognese.
Okay.
So a bit of Italian.
Fair.
I think they'd say that my stir fry.
The bolognese is with the beef balls and with spaghetti on top.
Yeah. So sometimes it's not meatballs. Sometimes it's just mince as well. Like a traditional Italian bolognese. Chinese stir fry. So a variety of things. I enjoy cooking fish.
All right. Okay.
So all the things.
Any curry that you love to cook at all?
I cook a chicken curry.
Right.
All the things that I know my in-laws would be immensely disappointed if they follow this video channel. They'll be disappointed. So whenever we're cooking and they FaceTime, we're hiding behind so that they don't see.
So they know that you eat and you cook.
They know. But we don't.
You're grown up enough, and they understand that, isn't it?
But we don't do it if they're obviously around.
Well, I think that's basically most of our Indian families. That's the way we are, isn't it?
Yeah.
My wife, she's also very much flexitarian, and her mom and dad doesn't know that she has started. She has started actually to
explore.
Maybe we can start.
Yeah. Thank you.
So she's experimenting with chicken these days, and but it's quite right. I can very easily relate. To that. So
great. Thank you.
Yeah. So what about butter chicken? Like most of the Kiwis, they understand that the most popular Indian food outside of India is butter chicken. So what are your thoughts about butter chicken?
Oh, look, it's a westernized, So whenever we have European friends around, if my wife Sandy makes the butter chicken, they love it.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
But if she makes something slightly different, they actually enjoy it more.
Right,
So,
yeah.
I mean, butter chicken's it's the Western version.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's not the traditional, right?
No, sure. And I will share you my experience when I get my Western friends over at our home.
Right.
They always question us that we have been told, that butter chicken and the food that they are getting here in Indian restaurants, that's not the real Indian food, isn't it? Back in India, we are getting more curried and lesser creamy version of that. So have that kind of discussion come across in your tables?
So before I became chief executive, we had a Japanese director, and he had been with us for 13 years before he retired. And he had, I think, 3 years in India, helping to establish the Toyota network in India. So he had all the owners of the dealers over there as his best friends.
Okay.
And he experienced true traditional Indian cuisine and loved it.
Right, okay.
And when he came to New Zealand, he said, "This is not Indian cuisine." That was through his lens.
Right, yeah. And he was Japanese, isn't it?
He was Japanese, yeah. And he loved it, but he didn't love the Western fusion of Indian cuisine. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably I would say that a lot of Indian restaurants they are probably too scared of experimenting and presenting their real culture, isn't it? So that's great.
Actually, you get probably more of the authentic culture in the community bazaars, food festivals. So the Indian Association in Wellington used to have a
Well, I'm glad you didn't say it in Wellington, because I didn't want to start a war here between Wellingtonians and us Aucklanders, which is anyways a hot and heat contested topic.
I probably should have said Palmerston North.
Yeah, that's a safe bet. Right, okay. Now, walk us through a little bit more about your leadership role here at Toyota NZ. I think you were assigned, or probably you were baptized to this role somewhere in the middle of pandemic, or was it in the beginning of pandemic that you were assigned this role? Or?
Yeah, so you never really know whether you've got the CE role, which I think is a good thing.
Okay.
So I'd been on a development program for a long time with others in my executive team, and at some point my predecessor had decided that that I was going to be his choice for succession. But you still have to go through a process. So I completed my MBA with Massey University. So I never had a bucket list of wanting to do an MBA.
Okay.
So my boss told me I had to. So I did it. Then I finished it while we were in the US.
Okay.
And so my predecessor had spent nearly 3 years in the US 15 years ago. And he thought that it was a good training ground if you were going to be good enough to be to be given the keys to a company like Toyota. And so I got the opportunity to take my family to the US, work nearly 3 years for Toyota Motor North America.
Okay.
And that was a really humbling
experience.
Yeah.
And why was that?
It was the assignments. So my first assignment was closing down a brand with my boss called 𝗧cie.
Okay.
So 𝗧cie was a youth brand in the US that my predecessor actually helped set up 15 years ago. And my first assignment was shutting it down.
Right.
It was
not an ideal project to put your hands on.
An ideal project from a growth and learning opportunity. I wasn't with the company when we shut down our manufacturing plant, so I hadn't experienced
that heat.
I hadn't experienced the pain of shutting down a business operation, and that was quite humbling. Good friends losing their jobs was quite tough. It was quite a tough experience, and then to close that business down, and it was a brand that had been there for more than a decade. Was quite hard. So that led, that led to me returning back to New Zealand after.
So do you think that experience prepared you better for your eventual rise to CEO position with Toyota?
Yeah, I do actually. Because when you go from a company like Toyota in New Zealand to Toyota in North America, your own personal self-assessment changes. You go from being a big fish in a small pond to being, sort of a tiny fish in a giant ocean.
Giant ocean.
And in the US, no one, well, I was about to say no one cares what you think, which would be unfair.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's hard to be heard, and it's just big company syndrome.
All right, okay, I think we are running short of time.
Yeah.
I do understand you are running short of time as well.
Yes.
Let's walk us through to the last question. That is a very important question actually. That you have been at the helm of affairs with Toyota for probably 2.5 years, predominantly post-COVID environment. So how has been your experience so far?
It has been a baptism. So I took over at the pandemic timing. I was, so my predecessor stepped aside. He officially stood down as chief executive on the 1st of July. But between March of COVID and July, he took a hands-off role in terms of the steering of the ship.
Okay.
And so
very much this opportunity came to you along with COVID-19 hitting our shores.
Yeah, and his view was that we had done the training to be well prepared to handle chaos.
Right.
And his view was, which I agree with, you never let a good crisis go to waste.
In terms of learning. Right.
And so he took over at the global financial crisis.
Okay.
And so he felt that the crisis was
that tells
tailor-made.
more about Toyota's culture, passing the baton at the time of crisis, preparing the next rung of leadership.
Yeah, I have to admit, I did say to Alistair, I said, look, I think you should stay for another 1 more year. But he was very humble too. He said, no, you're ready. But the last 2 years, it has been
demanding.
Yeah, it has. Just one big challenge after another. But like any good company, good brand, good people, we've managed to work through each of those things.
Surely. And we are anyways, like I know our viewers, they're keeping an eye on what Toyota New Zealand is achieving, but I think for the purpose of this show, they are quite inspired by what you have been able to achieve. And if I have to ask for their benefit, 3 qualities in the realm of business career, which can fetch them anywhere near to what you have been able to achieve in your career, what would be those qualities?
Oh, look, I've told a lot of people that my blessing and my curse is having a belief that there's no best, only better. The blessing and curse for me is that there's no best, only better. And I say that's a blessing and curse because it means you're never happy. Or you're not that you're never happy, you're never satisfied. You
always
something,
aspire for more.
Aspire for better. And so, so you need a strong team to support you in that belief. And so
both at home and at work, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. You need. Firstly, I needed my wife to support me in that journey. If your partner doesn't support you, then you can't achieve anywhere near. And if your staff don't support you, and I've been blessed in both places. So strong family support, strong staff support. So
perfect.
You can only do that by being humble, I think.
Sure. Well, that's really great. I think that's a very amazing journey you are having at the moment, Neeraj. And we are really very thankful for sharing, I think, a lot of insight of your story of both your working life, your personal life. I still believe that you can walk home safely without not of fires coming your way from your wife or your wife's family, knowing about what we discussed this afternoon. But I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I sincerely appreciate that. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks
I wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me. And good luck with the rest of the show.
Sure.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. So yes, we are at the end of this inspiring show. As you know, we were talking to Neeraj Lala, one of the most sought after business entrepreneur, business leader of Kiwi Indian heritage right now here in New Zealand. We will continue this show. We will keep on striving to speak to the best of the best talents that Indian community have to offer to this country. Thank you very much.